We're good.
Awesome. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our session on best practices in teaching business statistics online. My name is Tracy Lee. I teach at Boise State University, and I have taught and am teaching business statistics online for a number of years now. I'm a Connect user, so I'm sharing some tips. We're going to start with the basics of how to add a course and a textbook to your Connect account, how to add assignments, looking at the resources available to you in Connect to help engage your students. And we would love to hear from you. On the call with us is Harper Christopher from McGraw-Hill. She'll be monitoring chat. So you can type a question into the chat window, use the blue bubble along the bottom of your screen to access chat, and she'll be monitoring that. She can either uh, intervene while I'm talking to say, hey, here's an urgent question, or I'll pause several times and answer your questions then. So we look forward to sharing with you some tips for teaching online um, outside of just using Connect that I'm using in my online classes, um, and then any other questions you may have, we're happy to answer. Let's get started with adding a course in Connect. We just click on the Add Course button in your Connect homepage and search for the book you want to add by title, author, or subject. There are a number of business statistics books in the McGraw-Hill catalog. I'm just going to search on Bowerman, and we'll see that Bowerman's got a number of books where um, that's an author's name. And let's use the most recent edition of the Business Statistics by Bowerman. So I've clicked title, and then I enter the name I want my course to be in Connect. You can name it anything you'd like. For Boise State, it would be BizStat 207 or BizStat 208, etc. Choose your time zone. If you'd like students to have a window within which they can register to sort of incent them to action, then you can set that here, although that is optional. And usually at the start of a semester, it's recommended that you give them 2 weeks to get into the class and that you have something due within those 2 weeks. Right now, when we're starting up in the middle of the semester, you probably have things due and you want to create some assignments quickly. So let's talk about section name. If you're going to have multiple sections, then you can name each section something different so that it triggers you like which one you're using. We'll just call this Spring 2020 Online. And then we click on Create Course. And it's working to set up the course for us. Then we have the course created. This screen tells us information we can share with students. If you're pairing your new Connect course with your learning management system, like Blackboard or Canvas, then there are instructions here for how to tell students how to connect in to their sorry, I've used the word connect a few times there, but there are instructions here for how to help students know how to access your Connect section from within your learning management system and how to register. If you're not going to pair it with your learning management system, then you can download a PDF version of this student registration information that gives them the link to register. And once you're ready to go to your section home, click on Continue to Home, and here is your new course. This is the faculty-facing interface. This is um, sort of a very easy to navigate, and I'll show you what the student's view looks like. It's a little bit different than this. We're going to take a look at what's in the library link. We'll take a look at how to add different types of assignments. And I do want to point out that in both your view, in your account as the instructor, and for students is an ebook. Actually, everybody's Connect course has two different versions of the textbook. One is a traditional ebook. When you click it, it opens in a new tab, and it's the HTML version. You can search around through the pages, chapters, look at end of chapter problems, etc. And there's also what's called SmartBook, and I'm not going to assume anybody knows SmartBook already, so I'll explain it a little bit. SmartBook is an interactive version of the textbook that has been pre-highlighted. You assign sections of the textbook of chapters, and students read the highlighted material and answer questions about it. They earn points. You can allow them to get points in your gradebook or not, but they earn credit by answering enough questions correctly. And those questions are designed to check their comprehension of what they've read. And I'll show you how to create an assignment for that. Okay, let's click on the library first. I want to show you some of these resources, and we'll come back to a couple later, and then we'll dig into creating some assignments. In the library, you have access to the ebook in two places here. Your list of assignments, you can click on to see all of those. You can see all of the media that's available in the textbook, like the videos. If you want to create a test from Connect and then export it so that you can import it, for example, into your LMS, you can use this tool here. And McGraw-Hill has lots of resources that walk you through how to use all of these. And then we have this instructor resources link. Also, you can record lectures from within Connect. They have the Tegrity recorder, and they have the capability for you to store your videos here, and they have lots of resources to show you how to use that tool. Let's click on Instructor Resource. Instructor Resources, you have your solution manual for the test bank and the problems. You have complete set of PowerPoint presentations, the test bank, so you can download the whole thing or chapter by chapter and use those questions. You have Excel tutorials, and I'm going to click on that one. These are actually, I recorded these a couple of years ago. This is set up by topic for all of the statistical techniques in the textbook that can be done in Excel. And so there's a series of 71 videos here, and these are available to you to use, but students also have access to all of these in this additional student resources link. That's a Word document. Students can see this, and all of these videos are there split up by chapter or by topic, basically. Students also have access to data files and other resources in this course-wide content section. So there's an instructor manual if you want additional there's instructor videos if you would like additional information about SmartBook 2.0 in the instructor resources. Okay, let's head back over to Connect and take a look at creating an assignment for questions after we've created our first assignment. Okay, let's click on Add Assignment, and I'm going to add a SmartBook assignment. You have options for question banks from which you can pull from end of chapter problems and algorithmic problems for homework and quizzes, and then there's SmartBook. So we're going to click on SmartBook 2.0. If you're using a textbook that has been out for if it's been out since January 2019, I think you'll have SmartBook 2.0, and textbooks from prior to January 2019 will have the SmartBook 1.0, which is just a little bit different interface. We'll click on New Assignment, Continue. We'll choose a chapter. Thinking about where we might be in the semester, I'm going to click on Confidence Intervals and Continue. And this is the difference between SmartBook 2.0 and 1.0 from the instructor-facing side. We have more granularity in the ability to assign pieces of a chapter. So if you don't want to assign all of section 9.4, then you can click this arrow and click on Edit next to Concepts and unselect any of these sections that you didn't want to cover. For example, knowing how to compute a sample size or understanding how a confidence interval. As you uncheck these, you'll notice that the amount of time it's expected to take for the assignment will change. and you have a lot of control over how much of the book, or the chapter rather, you assign. You can also decide, I want my assignments to be no more than 45 minutes, and you can adjust selection by clicking the minus sign to get down to what you consider a reasonable maximum time for an assignment. And all that does is reduces the amount of highlighting and reduces the number of concepts covered in a chapter. You're ready to move ahead. Oh, and this is one reason it's helpful to have the textbook open, either paper copy or ebook, because then you can check those sections and say, oh, yeah, I'd like to cover this or that, especially if it's a new book for you. There's a lot of time we spend in mapping over from a previous book to a new book. Okay, so this can cut down on that time for you and for your students by only assigning the specific things you want to cover. Once we have this set up, we can name our assignment, SmartBook confidence intervals, and then what is the due date for it? We'll set that to be due March 28th. And how many points do you want to assign? As someone who's taught online for a long time and always quantitative courses, I've learned to give my students frequent small point assignments. In my statistics class, I've ended up having things due 5 days a week. That's pretty extreme. In another class I teach, I have things due 3 days a week. But what I learned about statistics, because everything builds on everything, the more frequently they engage with the material, the easier it is for them to build and retain what they are learning. And so every assignment is a small point value and can't destroy their grade if they miss it. So that's why I have pretty small point value setups for SmartBook readings, but I assign for pretty much all chapters. If you have linked your Connect course with your learning management system, at the bottom, instead of just this assign button, you'll see the link to your LMS. So you can push it to your learning management system, Blackboard, Canvas, etc., from here, and the link will show up for students in your learning management system, when you sync your class to Blackboard, to Connect. And then for students, it's a single sign-on experience. They're not having to go to Connect and go to your LMS. From within your LMS, they can get to everything. That's one very strong incentive to connect these to your LMS. But I'll click on Assign because this set isn't connected to my LMS. And I now have the first assignment set up, SB for SmartBook. And the eyeball indicates that students can see it. I can click the eyeball and hide it, and then unhide it. I can see what the due date is. So I've got my first assignment, and with that, I'll pause and see what questions we might have now, and then we'll move on to additional types of assignments.
Hi, Tracy. There are no questions as of now.
Okay.
I did post, Tracy uses Blackboard. Are there other LMSs you have questions about? If anyone is using another LMS that they're interested in syncing with, we have more information on that and can absolutely share it. For many of our LMSs, we do have, full integration that's seamless, so that students don't even realize that they're outside of the LMS. When you set up your Connect course, you sync, and they have no idea that they're in another environment at all. And for the most part, we can do that across the board, but there are a couple of exceptions, but we can work with each of you on that. So just wanted to leave that, and Tracy, you can keep going.
Okay, awesome. And please do remember, if you have questions, even if it's not about what I'm covering right now, go ahead and type them in the chat, because we would rather talk about things that are useful to you and know what those things are that you'd like to hear about. All right, let's look at adding another type of assignment. Let's add a homework assignment. So I've clicked on Add Assignment and Question Bank. And this window is going to pop up to let me select a question source. It tells me at the top what textbook I'm in, I can click this drop down and see other sources. For example, any assignment I've created in Connect, I'll have access to be able to pull in questions from. That might be helpful if you want to reuse some questions from previous tests to create a cumulative final or to create a practice test for them preparing for the cumulative final. There are interactives here, and we'll take a look at those, and then you can create your own question. But let's create a traditional homework assignment for right now. And I did want to point out also, there are Connect orientation videos, a lot of them. You can assign them to your students for points or no points that will orient them to how to use the features in Connect. And this is where you can actually, in quote marks, assign to students that Word document that has the additional student resources, which I showed you in the instructor resources tab. There's also BizStat prep course. This is 3 modules, one on math, one on statistics, and one on Excel, that are useful for students who need um, a very basic introduction to how to do math or how to use the features of Excel or basic statistics terminology. And these would often be assigned at the very start of a semester to get students up to speed if they haven't had stats in a long time and they're taking a second course in a sequence, or if simply they would benefit from having access to that. So you can click that and explore those. Again, let's create a traditional homework assignment and continue working with confidence intervals. In the confidence interval chapter, I have access to these 3 types of selectable items: exercises, which are end of chapter problems, supplementary exercises, additional problems, and then a test bank of static questions. I'm going to select the chapter 9 exercises, and it shows me that there are 34 problems for chapter 9, the confidence interval chapter in Bowerman. The orange A on the right-hand side of a question indicates that's an algorithmic question. This is very useful for giving students different numbers each time they attempt the problem. And of course, for giving everyone in the class their own set of numbers so that they're not seeing the same numbers as their friend who's also working on this problem. You can filter the results multiple ways. For example, if we click on Learning Assets, guided examples are problems that include a video that walk the student through how to solve that problem with different numbers. This is very useful in an online course where you're not going to have the opportunity to work through as many problems with them face to face as you would in a face to face class, and they can't ask you questions in the middle of doing a homework assignment, especially 11 o'clock at night. So I try and load up as many guided example problems as I can in my online assignments for that reason. You can see that for this chapter, there are 7 problems that have guided examples. And we also can click on Other and sort for problems that include Excel data files students can download. And under Type, we can sort by just show us the algorithmic problems. So you can have as many filters as you'd like on your results. Let's just leave the guided examples one as our only filter for now. And I'm going to add some problems to the test. You have 2 options when you're adding problems. You can add them from here if you know that you want to add problem 9.8 and 9.28. Let's click on the Add Checked Questions, and I can add these as individual questions. Every student would do both of these questions, or I can add them to a pool. Pools are pretty useful for exams where you want to have multiple questions, so not every student gets the same test. Added those as individual questions, and it immediately shows with the plus sign, these are now part of my assignment. But if I don't know what those questions are, I can click on the Individually tab, see the problems. Now remember, we had sorted by the ones that have guided examples. So if I scroll down here, I'll see that there's a hint hyperlink. This hint hyperlink is where you find the video. For students, it's on their left menu bar when they do the problem. And you can play the video to see how they walk through the problem as well. So I'll close. And I've already added this problem. It reminds me with that plus sign. Moving on to problem number 2, this is the static version of the algorithmic problem. One of the things that I do is for especially a complicated problem, let's say there was an algo problem that didn't have a hint video or that didn't have a walkthrough video, I would work through the static version of it in a practice problem video or just on an asynchronous meeting with the students, and then assign them the algorithmic version, and they can work through it with different numbers. So moving on, we've assigned, let's say I'd like to assign 9.22. From here, I would click on add this question, and I can add it to a pool or as an individual question still here. And that one has been added. And I would move forward through this until I felt like I had an assignment I was happy with. But let's say that I'd also like to add questions from another source. I can click select a different question source, and let's say I want to add some supplementary exercises. So I'll select that, and it keeps me in the view that I was in before. So it's now showing me in the individually view those questions, but I can click on list, and I see that there are 3 supplementary exercises. Let's add this one to our assignment question. All right. I feel like I have all the questions I want. Now I'm going to click on Organize Assignment. And before I forget, I'll name this, let's say, Homework in Confidence Intervals. And I see that the default is 10 points per problem. If I don't want to set 10 points as the, then I can click on this Set All Point Values. And let's say I know that I wanted all the questions to be worth 3 points each. Okay, that's changed, but I can also click here and set the point value to whatever I'd like. Now I've got some choices. When I'm done here, I can either save and exit if I'm not yet ready to assign this to students. And that will save essentially a draft of the assignment for me to come back in and change later. Or I can continue forward. And this takes me to the policies page. McGraw-Hill provides a plethora, a smorgasbord of policies that you can set on your assignments. Let's first begin by setting the due date for this. I'll set it to April 10, and immediately one more policy pops up, which is, am I going to allow late submissions? The default is to allow them. Clicking on edit shows you that you can assign a penalty in hours or days and by percentage, or automatically submit assignments on the due date. Because I have multiple small stakes assignments, I don't allow work submitted past the due date. I just build in some buffer, a dropped assignment or 2 here and there. And so I choose automatically submit assignments on the due date. But whatever would work in your environment. And then we have a choice of what type of assignment this is: homework, practice, quiz, or exam. Let's keep it as a homework assignment and click on Expand Advanced Settings. Here you can see that we have a lot of different defaults already set up. Let's click on Edit All Settings, and we can go through these tabs and make our choices. Under the Basic tab for a homework assignment, I don't set a time limit. I do allow them to print the question if they want to have it and work through it paper and pencil, or just have it next to them. I don't set up scramble the questions, and these are all things that you would just set up to whatever your preference is. Under attempts, the default is unlimited attempts. Personally, I set it to 2. I have colleagues who use unlimited. You can choose whether to allow students to revise the previous attempt when they move forward to another attempt at the assignment, or to start over. If you're focusing on algorithmic questions, my personal perspective is always use start over, because then they get the benefit of practicing with different numbers rather than simply finishing a problem that they didn't get right on the previous attempt. You can allow for study attempts. This is very helpful for students if they happen to miss the homework, but they can now access it for study attempts, or if they want to work through the problems more with different numbers. So they can use study attempts here. Resources, you've got some things that are set up by default, like access to the ebook and its resources. Hence, this is where if you disabled this, they would not see that guided example link or other types of hints that have been provided. Under Check My Work, you can allow a student to check their work however many times you choose. Me personally, I allow, it depends on the class, 1 to 3 check my works. I don't use multiple choice questions on a homework assignment, and because 3 attempts, they would then know the right answer. So if I'm using a multiple choice question, I would limit it to 1 attempt. Again, me personally, and then ask the instructor if you wanted students to be able to contact you from within Connect if they have a specific question. Under feedback, if you've set up more than 1 attempt allowed, then you have 2 choices here for how to give feedback to students. In an auto-graded platform, it's really great that they will get their score right away. And if you want them to be able to see their results and see how to work through that problem, what they did right or wrong, then this is set that up and you have a lot of choices. My personal preference is I choose detailed feedback for the first attempt, and for the second final attempt, detailed feedback with solutions. Sometimes the solutions section offers a more complete explanation than the feedback section does of a problem, because McGraw-Hill problems have a section for feedback and a section for a solution. Most of the time, the complete solution is in the feedback area. All right, if you're happy with your policies that you've set up, you can save default settings. Then all of your homework assignments will have these policies and you won't have to keep setting things. When you're ready to move forward, scroll down and click Review and Assign. And this page is where if you, for example, had multiple sections that you're responsible for, you can push this homework assignment to every one of those sections. You can review the policies you've set and the questions that you've added. And then when you're ready, you can click on Assign, or if you've synced this with an LMS, click on it will be pushed to your LMS at that point when you click on Assign. And we now have 2 assignments set up, a homework assignment and a SmartBook assignment, both visible to students. The final, let's see here. Let's look at what other assignment types we have. Clicking on Add Assignment. Let's take a quick look at how to set up a test differently. I'll pause for questions. We would still click on Question Bank. And let's stick with the chapter we have been looking at, confidence intervals. And I'll choose Test Bank. This chapter, there are 149 questions in the test bank. I'm going to narrow that down to just multiple choice, filter the results. Now I have 113 questions. I can also filter it by learning objective. If you're like me, you don't cover every part of every chapter. So let's say I just want to see the problems from the learning objectives that I'm covering. And so I filter the results, and now I'm down to 112 questions. And I can only see the beginning of the question stem. I want to look through these individually and make decisions. All right, let's say I like this question. I'm going to add this question to a pool. Call it Pool 1. You can call it whatever you want, of course. Because it's the first question in the pool, I can only draw 1. But once I've added more questions, I'll be able to, in the Organize tab, choose how many questions to assign from the pool. And also I can change the point value there. Added this to the pool. I go to the next question and I say, yeah, okay, I want to add this to the same pool that I just created. Next question, I want to put it in a separate pool, a new pool. And draw 1 for now because that's the only one in the. Moving on to the next question, and let's say I don't like this question. I'm going to skip it, or it doesn't fit my teaching style. And same with this one. All right, I like this one. I'm going to add this to, and I'll add it to pool 2. So you would just move through the question bank. Now recall I said that in instructor resources, you can download the test bank. So you can actually have a Word document where you're like, okay, these are the questions I want to include, and find those and quickly add them if you didn't want to go through question by question. But this also gives you an idea of what it will look like on the screen. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions set up. Let's add a different question source. Let's say we'll be on more than just chapter 9. I'm going to return to the table of contents and also add hypothesis testing and select that test bank. So multiple different question sources to include on the test. We'll go to the list and narrow it to multiple choice and choose a couple of learning objectives to include. And now I've got all these questions, and let's say that I know which questions I want to add. I'm going to add these to a pool and create a pool. And now I can see all 5 questions are available to be drawn. Let's draw 2 of the 5, add. Okay, I'm good. I'm ready to set up my test. Click on Organize Assignment, and let's call this Test Chapter 9 and 10. And I can see here my point values. Let's say I'm going to make this 2 points. Okay, I've got an 8-point test right now. And again, I can look at these questions individually or just click the drop downs to see the question stems. When I'm ready to move on, I click Continue, and I'm at the policy page. For this, we'll set the due date, April 24th, and select the category. You can select quiz or exam. You have slightly different settings, but they're mostly the same. Submit as is on due date is the default for an exam. Expand the advanced settings, and you can set up your policies like we looked at before for your exam. I'll click on Edit All Settings. If you are like my school, we're being suggested that consider when proctoring is or isn't available. And one of the ways that you can increase the variety of tests that come out rather than having everyone have the same test is by scrambling the questions. What this will do is not only randomly select from a pool, but also show the questions in a different order by test taker. You can also set a time limit here. If your test is unproctored, you may want to consider setting a time limit unless you're okay with OpenNote, OpenBooks tests. And a rule of thumb on pure multiple choice that doesn't require calculation is about a minute per question. And I usually double that to take into account different speeds of reading comprehension. And so we have a 4-question test, so I might set that at 10 minutes. I wouldn't allow printing just because it's a test, but that's up to you for sure. And under attempts, if you want to allow them to have more than one attempt, you'll see that 1 attempt is the default. Under resources, they don't have access to hints or check my work, etc. You can add those as you prefer. And under feedback, the default is no feedback. This gives you a chance to take a look before they see their results. But you can change that to any of these options. Like if you wanted them to just see their total score, then they can. And then you can choose to release feedback later after you have a chance to look at it. Or if you're having it 100% auto graded, you can let them see any of the options you'd like. And of course, you can hold the feedback to give a buffer for anybody still in progress as the time is expiring. Save as so that they're not able to see other people's results before they submit their test is why I said that. Click on Save as Default to set this up for all of your tests so that you don't have to keep choosing those, and then move ahead to review and assign. Check your policies and assign, either pushing it to your LMS or just assign in Blackboard. And we have a test. All right, I'll go ahead and pause and see if there are any questions.
Hi, Tracy. Yeah, there was one question, but it was more specific to a situation with Blackboard where they were combining 3 sections into one and trying to understand how if that could work for grading. So I have a message into McGraw-Hill, the LMS team, to see if they can help with that. Other than that, there were no other questions.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look at what other assignment types we had, and then we'll take a look at what students see. You can assign, and this is something that I've done in an online class. I have found articles that I want students to read or YouTube videos, for example, and this web activity will let you assign those, which basically puts in a link that's easy for students to find of what you want them to read. It's also a persistent link. So if you copy your Connect course next semester, that link will stay with it. Um, I've had problems in my LMS with some links disappearing, but it's resident in Connect, so that link doesn't disappear on you. And I think we'll call that good as far as assignments are concerned. Go back to assignments tab here. Let's take a look at the student view. The student facing interface of Connect looks quite different than it does for faculty. On the left-hand side, they actually have access to their own analytics. The eyeglasses and the chart are different types of analytics that they have access to. Now, if you've linked your Connect course to your LMS, then they may not come in to their Connect homepage at all. They may just be using the links you've provided. But if they go to connect.mheducation.com and log in, they'll have this menu available to them where they can see the results and insights, the calendar of what's due. And you can see that we've got this homework assignment in March, or excuse me, the SmartBook assignment in March, and the homework assignment and the test. Okay. We want to go back to do and look at everything that we have under BizStat there. They have the ebook on their left menu, and they also have access to some resources here. I encourage you, if you use SmartBook, which is a really excellent resource to get students engaged with a textbook and actively engaged by answering questions about it, to run through one of these assignments for yourself. From within the student view, you just click on the arrow and then click on begin so that you see what they see. You can experience how they are experiencing SmartBook. And for the homework assignment, same thing, just to look at what does that homework assignment look like to them. And the test, if you had set a start date on your test of, say, April 20th, and you were going to give them 4 days to decide when to take it, there will be a little lock right here that indicates right now they can't start it, but it will show them what dates the test is available. And this is the student view of SmartBook. Excuse me, the student view of Connect. Okay, I'm going to pause one more time and see if there are any questions, and then share stuff that I do for my online class that's outside or that's other than Connect assignments.
No more questions.
Okay. All right. So I've taught business statistics online for coming up on 3 years, summer, spring, fall. Both of our courses are BizStat 207 and BizStat 208. And I have learned a lot about what doesn't work. And every demographic is going to be different. But what I learned is lecture videos are really important to students if you're not going to be able to have synchronous sessions with them online. But even if you do have synchronous sessions, video support is really helpful. And these don't have to be professionally produced. If you're using Zoom, for example, you can, depending on your school's access, you can record your Zoom session and make that available In quantitative material, it takes students sometimes multiple attempts to understand it, especially if it's a different learning modality than they signed up for originally with face-to-face. My school uses Panopto. That's our video hosting platform, and I record lecture videos using the Panopto recorder. All I record is what's on my screen and my voice over a mic. So I created PowerPoints. I started with what was provided by the textbook and then modified them and added animations and reduced the content on each slide so that I'm spending between 30 seconds and 2 minutes per slide, or that I have animation that's building up on a slide so that there's a lot of movement and flow and not a lot of text. And that I provide students with guided notes in this type of class where they are printing off a Word document to fill in the notes. The reason that I do that is simply to increase their engagement with the video, to give them something to do actively while they're watching it. I also embed quiz questions in the video. It pauses every couple of minutes and asks them a question, kind of similar to the idea of SmartBook, but in video format, so that it resets their brains thinking about how long they've been watching that video and gives them a check-in on the concept. This is for a formal online class where I've spent hundreds of hours on all my classes that I teach online, setting all of them up. When you're trying to do this on the fly, something you can do is if you are talking to students face to face, or excuse me, through Zoom, if you're talking to them synchronously, have prepared a couple of PowerPoint slides that have multiple choice questions or short problems for them to work through and have them work through it and post their responses in chat. Or you can set up a Blackboard quiz that immediately follows, or excuse me, Blackboard. I'm obviously in the Blackboard LMS, but in your LMS that quizzes them on whatever you've just covered in that session, that live session, so that it's checking their understanding and giving you feedback also on what wasn't clear. And that's also a way for them to get, say, participation points. So it can be as little as 2 or 3 questions that you put out there. If you're using the Connect recorder, you can add your own pre-built questions, or you can build your own questions if you want to, or pull questions out of the test bank about what you covered. And again, it's all about assessing how students are doing. I use discussion threads. I don't have help on grading, so I don't use very many, and I give questions that are meaningful to their life experiences. I've also set up quizzes through either Blackboard or Qualtrics, where I ask them questions like, what color are your eyes? How many siblings do you have? I ask them survey questions and then show them that data in real time and work with that data in Excel or whatever platform we're using to work with our data so that they see their own data being used to demonstrate the techniques of the class. And all of this is kind of just helping them engage and see the data as real. So those are some of the things that I do in my online class. And I'd love to hear if you have things you're doing that you found that work or you have questions about. And so let's go ahead and pause and see what's come up in chat.
There are no questions in chat.
Okay. I'd actually like to offer just a little bit of an awkward silence right now and let people type if they do have questions, if something has occurred to them or they've got something they'd like to type in as feedback. If there's something we haven't covered that you'd like us to cover. And Harper, while we're doing that, this recording will be shared. Is that correct?
This recording, yes, will be shared after the event, and there will be all of the recordings will be sent to all of the faculty that have attended.
Okay. And also, McGraw-Hill's website has an amazing setup with resources to help faculty who are now teaching online and weren't expecting to be.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I think this has been, as usual, a great event, and I appreciate you doing it. And we will be following up with recordings. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to attend this session.